You're listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Welcome back to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans from the West Coast. I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Thursday, January 5th. And I'm very happy to be joined once again by fellow South Stands contributor Paige Van Horn from Denver. PVH, how are we feeling this evening, my friend?
Hey, buddy. Good to talk with you. It's a cold day here in Denver. It's sort of like, I guess, a cold day everywhere for Buckeye fans. But, you know, we're going to do this and we're going to get through it together.
We're going to get through a little group therapy session here.
Yeah,
we are also joined by fellow contributor Chad Plummer from Cleveland. CP, what's the word from the 216, my friend?
What up? How you guys doing, man? Good to be on here, I guess.
Yeah.
Wish I was previewing, Chad.
I wish I was previewing the national championship, but you know, hey.
Yeah, buddy, you and me both, my friend. Yeah, pretty wet and rainy here in the Bay Area. We're getting hit with a pretty gnarly storm front, which is pretty appropriate for kind of, you know, the aftermath of what happened on New Year's Eve. Of course, we are here to have a second look at number 4 Ohio State's heartbreaking 42-41 loss to number 1 Georgia in the CFP semifinals in the Peach Bowl on New Year's Eve. Now, I did a quick recap pod for our listeners on New Year's Day, and most of you know where I came down on the way the Buckeyes played against the Bulldogs. Now, I'll have a few new thoughts to share today, but gents, our listeners have not yet had the opportunity to hear your views on the way things played out in that game. Now, PVH, I want to start with you. And look, there's a lot to talk about. I just want to start here. Ohio State had a 2-touchdown lead going into the fourth quarter of this game. It was 38-24 Buckeyes at that juncture. Why, in your opinion, did Ohio State lose this game?
Well, I'd be curious what your takes were, but I was not comfortable with that whatsoever. Like, there was nothing pulsating through my body or my mind that said, oh, we're in a good spot here. You know, like, I mean, we were in a good spot, but I was not comfortable whatsoever because, you know, just the nature of college football and that game in general, right? Like, putting up 14 points in a quarter is like nothing. Like Michigan and TCU put up like 60 and a half. Like, it was crazy. So I wasn't nervous, but I was like, this isn't over by a long shot.
Right.
And so, you know, why did they lose that game? I think they lost that game for 2 reasons. Number one, there were about 5 things that were very close plays in the fourth quarter that could have, and every single one of them broke Georgia's way. If one of them doesn't, we probably have enough to, you know, finish it off and win the game. And we can probably get into that as we go.
Right.
And the other thing, and I was sitting with Juan, and, you know, in my recollection, and of course there were a few Heinekens by that point. And I haven't had the stomach to go back and watch it, but when we went for the fake punt and they called the timeout and then we punted the ball, there were what, like 6 minutes left to go in the game, roughly? Do I have that right?
A little longer than that, actually. Yeah, I think it was closer to 9 minutes. Yeah, at that stage. Yeah, something in the 9-minute range. Yeah, I'd have to check the game log, but
yeah. Well, and I was sitting there with Juan, and I was like, if he punts this ball, we're going to lose the game. Because I just felt like it was so close. It wasn't even a full yard. You got to go for it at that point. And again, I go back to the freaking quarterback sneak. Like, you can get that. And it just felt to me like that was the one sort of minor knock. I get it. You punt the ball, and you live with that result. That's probably what the book says to do. But to me, it just felt like, man, your best defense is your offense at this point. Mm-hmm. And I felt like they needed, and I think actually Ryan Day probably thought that too, right? Because he called the fake punt. Unfortunately, it worked, and then they called a timeout. But punting that ball at that point, I just felt like, man, you're just giving this team too many opportunities to come back and tie the game or win the game. And that's ultimately what happened. But, you know, from a 30,000 foot level, you know, it's funny, like, I don't know if proud is the right word, and there are no moral victories for, you know, in Buckeye football. But man, that team played its heart out. I give them all the credit in the world. I was wrong about CJ. Ryan Day redeemed himself exceptionally. We'll get into Knowles. They went toe to toe with the best team in the country and lost by a point. And a lot of things had to break Georgia's way in order for them to win that game. So it sucks gigantically that they lost. But on the other hand, it is a game, and what are you going to do, man? They played phenomenally. There were some breakdowns on defense, but other than that, they played fantastically, in my opinion.
Okay, PVH. CP, how about you? Why did Ohio State lose this game?
Well, I mean, there's probably, a handful of things, but I'll tell you what, I'll pin it down right, and I'll blatantly say it, and I don't give a fuck what anybody else says. That targeting call should have been fucking a targeting call. That would have changed the entire momentum of the game. We would have scored a touchdown there. It would have been fucking over.
Yeah, it's a big call. It's a big call.
It would have been over. No, there's no debate, nothing. Game's over. We score.
Big reversal because it was actually called on the field and they reversed it on the replay.
What blows my mind is that they the reversal, that makes it even worse. You know what I mean? Like when it's called, like that's just insane.
Yeah.
I'm not there was a couple of Ransom falling down on that fucking play in the fourth quarter. That was awful. That really bummed me out. I mean, as it did most people in the entire country. Hey, I'm proud of the way they played. Am I bummed out? Yeah, of course, obviously. I mean, I'd love to be playing on Monday night because I know we could beat TCU and so, but it is what it is, man.
Personally, I lay this loss 110% at the feet of Jim Knowles' defense. And I actually do want to push back on this idea that Knowles did not have enough talent at his disposal to make a 14-point fourth quarter lead hold up in this game. And we had a spirited debate over text about this a couple days ago. PVH, you had cited the fact that Ohio State did not recruit enough talent, enough top 100 defensive players in the 2019 and 2020 recruiting classes as one reason why the defense, the secondary in particular, played so poorly in high leverage moments late in the season and in this game. And I am not going to argue against that. And by the way, kudos to you because the Buckeye Talk guys made exactly the same point in their post-game pod after the Peach Bowl. And look, there's no question. This year's secondary is a notch or two below the likes of, the 2014 and 2019 secondaries. However, I think there was more than enough ability in this year's secondary to be at the very least technically and assignment sound so as to at least limit those devastating explosive plays that were their undoing against both Michigan and Georgia, especially when you consider the strength of Jim Knowles is his scheme, which is designed to elevate his talent. That's exactly what happened at Oklahoma State, right? He was working with 2- and 3-star talent at Oklahoma State, and his scheme elevated that talent. So to illustrate my point, let me just start with the kids who played most of the snaps in the secondary this season and against Georgia. Ronnie Hickman, 4-star. He was the number 115 player in his class, the 2019 class. Well, guess what? That makes him a higher rated player than Jordan Fuller, Malik Hooker, and Tyvis Powell. Fuller was the number 134 player in his class. Hooker was 360. Tyvis Powell was 483. Lathan Ransom, 4-star, number 167 in his class, 2020. That makes him a higher rated player coming out of high school than both Malik Hooker and Tyvis Powell. Denzel Burke, 4-star, number 199 in his class. That makes him a higher rated player than both Denzel Ward and Damon Arnett, right? Ward and Arnett won a lot of games at Ohio State, won Big Ten championships, played in the playoffs. They were both first-round draft picks. And look, if those guys aren't getting it done, and I think we can all agree, right? That unit did not get it done this year when it really mattered. Well, guess what? Jim Knowles, Tim Walton, Perry Eliano, you had 4 top 100 defensive backs available to you for the Peach Bowl with a full month to get them ready to play. J.K. Johnson, number 50, Jordan Hancock, number 73, Josh Proctor, number 71, and Sonny Styles, number 12. Styles was the only one of that bunch that logged defensive snaps against Georgia, and he only played 12 snaps. So, there was enough talent there not to just suck at the highest leverage moments. And now look, is Ronnie Hickman Von Bell? No, of course he's not. Is Denzel Burke Jeff Okudah? Of course not. But 5-star defensive backs like Bell and Okudah are very, very rare at Ohio State. I looked it up. Of the 12 recruiting cycles that span the Urban Meyer and Ryan Day eras, that's 2012 through 2023, Ohio State has only landed 5 5-star defensive backs. Von Bell in 2013, Jeff Okudah and Sean Wade in 2017, Tyreek Johnson in 2018, who's a total bust, didn't do anything at Ohio State, and then Sonny Styles in 2022. So more often than not, you're going to see most Ohio State secondaries. You might have one 5-star in the group, but it's going to be largely built of 4-star guys and maybe the occasional 3-star guy. And the really frustrating thing for me about the Peach Bowl is the two biggest pass plays they gave up, which both resulted in Georgia touchdowns, were not because of any kind of talent deficiency. They were failures in situational awareness by either the coaching staff or the players on the field, and they involved the same player, Arian Smith, who is a one-trick pony at receiver that only runs go routes. Now, I heard an interview with one of the Georgia's beat writers before the game who said that when Smith enters the game, expect Georgia to take a deep shot. I remember him, I think it was with Doug Maurice that he did the interview. And I remember the guy saying, now Georgia fans are going to get pissed at me for saying this, but when number 11 comes into the game, he's going deep. So, on the first explosive, Smith was matched up on Tommy Eichenberg for a 47-yard reception down to the Ohio State 11-yard line. And Paige, you made a good observation. Eichenberg did a hell of a job staying with him to the extent he could, right? But Eichenberg was supposed to get help over the top from Ronnie Hickman. And Hickman was busy guarding grass on the other side of the field and didn't get enough depth on the play.
Blows.
And then midway through the fourth quarter, Smith beats Ransom. You guys have already mentioned it, for a 76-yard touchdown reception. Ransom trips over his feet. Smith blows by him. Tanner McAllister is late rotating over. Neither of them is within 25 yards of Smith when he catches the ball. Look, in that situation, why are you attempting to cover a receiver with 4.2 speed, who everyone knows is running a deep route, and who already beat you for one explosive play earlier in the game with a goddamn safety? I mean, that's a huge mismatch that Georgia will take all day long. That is a major failure in situational awareness by the coaching staff. And of course, Ransom didn't give himself a chance at all on the play by tripping over his own feet. So you could even maybe count that as an execution mistake. So look, it's midway through the fourth quarter. You got an 11-point lead. You've got to make Georgia eat clock and drive 11, 12 plays to get that touchdown. That's how their offense is designed to move the ball anyway. I mean, the Bulldogs do not make their living with explosive plays. They came into this game 76 nationally at scrimmage plays of 40-plus yards. They only had 5 of them coming into that game, and against Ohio State, they got 2. And instead, look, Georgia needed 10 seconds to score that touchdown. Then they converted the 2-point try. Suddenly, it's a 3-point game with an eternity to play, 8 minutes and 41 seconds. So, I mean, someone's got to be able to recognize that matchup disaster for Ohio State on that play, whether it's Knowles in the booth or Day on the field. I mean, it's also worth noting, by the way, Ohio State still only has 4 on-the-field defensive coaches, which is very unusual. And I think that was a big part of what was missing in this game for Ohio State. And you think about it, on the other sideline, just one play before, Kirby Smart had the wherewithal to call a timeout when he saw something fishy in that Ohio State punt formation. And it probably saved the goddamn game for Georgia. So that was a critical 2-play sequence that I think showed you the difference between the two coaching staffs. And look, I mean, a 2-touchdown fourth quarter lead with a berth in the national title game on the line. Look, I understand we all felt proud of the way Ohio State played, but man, that was also a colossal missed opportunity for this program, right? I mean, you'd have been a double-digit favorite against TCU on Monday night, just as Georgia is. And I know we get a lot of bites at the apple as Ohio State fans, right? Because the Buckeyes are usually, right there every year in the championship hunt. But nothing's ever guaranteed, right? And you just never know when you're going to get another opportunity like this. So anyway, sorry for ranting. I just had to get that out of my system. PVH, I want to kick this back to you. What else did you see from that game against Georgia that stood out?
Points.
Yeah, dude, they're valid points. And I don't think anyone's, and I don't know that you're insinuating it like, oh, the reason why we lost that game is because we don't have enough talent in the secondary. I do think there has been a drop off in the talent in the secondary. For sure. And there's definitely been a drop off and maybe in the development in the secondary.
Good point.
But
absolutely.
I asked this question, on the preview pod where I'm like, do you think Jim Knowles is going to change? And you guys are both like, no, he's not going to change. And guess what? He didn't change. And you were right. And guess what? He's probably not going to change in the fourth quarter either then. So if you want it one way, then you're going to kind of have to live with it. I mean, Ransom falls down. And again, I don't know enough. And I don't go back and look at every play and figure out, what coverages they're in. Georgia's a hell of an offense. They got a ton of weapons. Like if you're going to stack, the box against them, then they have enough weapons with their wide receivers and the tight ends to probably beat you in a different way. And I feel like at some level, man, you can only take away so much. I'm not excusing it. Like, guy running literally with no one within 40 yards of him in the fourth quarter is just hard to stomach. But that being said, like you could flip the coin and like say you're Georgia, right? Like, holy shit, how did this vaunted defense end up giving up 41 points to Ohio State's offense, right? I mean,
yeah, I would
really,
say,
really, hold on, really, with only a passing attack, like that's all we could do, and they couldn't fucking stop it. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a total indictment against Jim Knowles, or the scheme, or they don't have enough coaches, or if Ryan Day needs to stop calling offensive plays and pay more attention on the defensive side, because I don't really know candidly what that's going to do for you, right? I mean, if that's not where he's comfortable, then why do we think that Ryan Day is going to make some dramatic difference if he stops calling offensive plays, because he can visualize something on the defensive side? Well, if that's the case, then you hired the wrong guy, Jim Knowles.
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw an example of it with Kirby Smart sniffing out the fake punt.
You're taking one play and saying, okay, he called a timely timeout. That doesn't mean that Kirby Smart's, the Moses of coaching, bro. I mean, he doesn't have his nose buried in a play sheet because he doesn't call plays.
Yeah, bro.
So I mean, that's what I mean. It's little things like that where if you you've got that allows you to have the wherewithal of what's happening in a game, having a feel for the game. And honestly, if the roles were reversed and Georgia was in that really bad, unfavorable matchup and they were up 2 scores, and you've got a safety on a speedy receiver who'd already beaten you once before, I mean, I guarantee you Kirby Smart calls a timeout there. Get us into a different coverage. Paige, I would agree with you that, hey, just chalk it up to Georgia's just got a lot of weapons. What are you going to do? They score a lot of points in the playoffs. If we hadn't done the same thing against goddamn Michigan and Penn State and Maryland, I mean, we gave up so many explosive. It was the explosive plays that nearly cost us a chance of even playing Georgia. We got very lucky to even play that game because USC ends up losing to Utah. So it's just a trend that has, it ruined Ohio State's opportunity to win a Big Ten championship. We weren't able to beat our rival because of it. And now we're not playing in a very winnable national championship game.
Where do you fall on it, CP?
I at the end of the day, I'm not going to lay blame on Jim Knowles. I will say this, maybe like there were some like a couple schemes here and there that were like bad, but like I was so just disappointed in I was excited about this defense. Our defensive backs, man, they blow. And I don't give a shit if they're 4-star, 5-star. I'd rather have a fucking 3-star out there that can fucking ball, because Ronnie Hickman, who knows where the fuck he went this year? Denzel Burke, where the fuck was he? I mean, they're all just like, what happened to him? Is that like, what's his face? Like our defensive back coach? Is it all on him?
Yeah, well, there's 2 of them. There's Tim Welton and Perry Eliano, and are they the right men for the job?
He's got a great track record, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. But.
Well, it was his group, the safety group, that was a disaster in this game against Georgia. Ohio State, 20 Buckeyes played log defensive snaps in this game, and the starting safeties, their PFF grades were 3 of the worst 4 PFF grades of the 20 players that played in this game.
That's awful.
Ronnie Hickman, his grade of 54.1. Tanner McAllister, 50.5. And Lathan Ransom, 41. This is according to PFF. Those are 3 of the 4 worst grades of the 20 players that played. And by the way, those are their 3 worst PFF grades of the whole season in this game. Wow. Hickman, McAllister, and Ransom. So has
anybody, like, and again, I've had very limited desire to read much. Has anyone gone to Knowles and like asked him this, or Day, and asked him and said, have they done a
not really
conference?
No, there was just the immediate aftermath in the post game, and you don't get get those guys for very long. But
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm just really I'm excited just to clear out that whole, I'm glad Hickman's gone. Like, we got some ballers coming up, man, and it was like, I didn't read the text that you were talking about, like, that it was the 19 and 20 classes. Cause I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? We like our whole defensive backfield and safeties and like top 100 players coming in, like Sonny Styles, like, Samson Hunt. Like, I mean, like these guys are the ballers.
Yeah.
So I just,
but Paige's point was a good one. Paige's point was a good one because the 19 and 20 classes were the junior and senior classes of this team. And those are the guys that you expect to carry you to a championship are your juniors and seniors. So
and how many freshmen are good enough to come play at that level, right? Okay, you might be good enough to even make
not a lot, but I'll tell you what, the way those guys played, I'd rather fucking take the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't realize the safeties played that bad of a game. And part of me was like, I guess I wasn't surprised that Georgia was able to move the ball. And I wasn't surprised that they were scoring touchdowns. They've got the best offensive line in the country. They've got good running backs. They had the two best tight ends. And then they had a wide receiver that was hurt that was going to play. Like, I was like, they're gonna score points. What I was, most happy about is that we were actually able to go toe to toe with them.
Did you guys ever have a thought in your head? Like, I mean, I would almost rather just get blown out than like knowing that we should have won that game.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, I would have been very disappointed with the blowout myself. I mean,
obviously, but I mean, yeah.
Well,
I would have been definitely on suicide hotline.
At some level. And I think the best adjective is the one you use. That is heartbreaking, right? Like, man, and it was there for the taking. And a blowout, no. But if they'd have gotten beaten 45 to 31, it really wasn't close. And they just kind of salted it away or grinded it away in the fourth quarter. It would have been easier to recover than that. So I do agree with you, Chad, on that point. But a total blowout, no. I mean,
I was a bit exaggerating there, but did you guys watch the field goal? I didn't even leave it at that. I didn't even watch that the field. Like, I didn't watch the kick.
I couldn't watch it live. I actually had my shirt over I had the volume muted and I had my shirt over my eyes. And then
I was out on the fucking deck contemplating just jumping off and seeing if I break my leg or not.
It was a damn shame, right? Because that's right at the edge of Ruggles' range. Actually, he's never made a 50-yard field goal in his career. And, could have Ohio State gotten more yardage, after the Stroud scramble down to the Georgia 31? Yes, of course. I suppose they could have, but for Christ's sake, at that stage, they didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr. They were down Cade Stover. They were using Xavier Johnson at running back, and then you already were without, the key losses, no Trevion Henderson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and all that. I mean, they were down to a skeleton crew offensively. It was a minor miracle that they were able to get that close to field goal range to begin with. And I certainly can't put it on Noah Ruggles at all. That was the last thought in my mind.
Plus it was off, Dick, you know what I mean? Like, just,
yeah.
Well, it was an All-American last year.
What was funny on the CJ scramble was that he like did a pirouette and like he tucked the ball. And I think then he looked upfield. So in his mind, he's like, I'm running this ball, which again was like, dude, like that's all we were ever asking from you from the run game. Right. But it was funny in that most crucial of moments. Like he's like, fuck it, I'm just running. And he tucked that ball immediately and, picked up 27
yards.
It's just,
yeah, huge. It was a huge play for him. All right, so why don't we shift our focus away from why Ohio State lost this game? The defense in Knowles. I'm still going to die on that. I'm still dying on this hill that this is firmly at Knowles' feet, but I'm going to let that go for now. Let's focus on some of the positives of this game. Why don't we start with Stroud? PVH, let me kick this to you. You've already kind of started to talk about what Stroud did in this game. What did you think of Stroud's performance in this game?
I mean, dude, that's not a debate. I mean, without Stroud, we're not in this game, right?
Yeah, he was the best player on the field, I thought, the whole game.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
By far. I mean,
23-34, 348, and 4 touchdowns. Sorry, PBH, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, he was insanely good. He was everything. And CJ's been good. There's just been, we've all been sort of nitpicking at, maybe a few things here and there, but, I think we all question not really his loyalty, but, not a hot California guy, but like, dude, he put all that shit to rest. I didn't read the article. I saw a headline. but some pro scouts said he did himself a lot of favors.
Oh, I'm sure he made a lot of money
in
that
this
night.
game for the upcoming draft. He showed the world everything, right?
Yeah.
That, under duress, he was good. He was directing traffic. He was a leader. He played, I mean, come on, there's really nothing else that any of us could have asked. And that's, I kind of just had this feeling like when Georgia scored that last touchdown, I think I even sent the text. I'm like, it's okay, man, because CJ is going to win this game for us. I probably put the hex on him, but I just felt like he had played so exceptionally up until that point. Totally. Boo. It's probably my fault. And he did everything, that you could probably ask for a guy in 58 seconds when we got the ball back to put us in a chance to win the game. And without him, I mean, dude, that game's probably not even close.
Yeah. He was the best player on the field. And I felt after him, it was probably Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, looking back on it, and I would not have guessed that because I thought probably Jalen Carter, the stud defensive tackle for Georgia, would probably have been the best player on the field when Ohio State had the ball and Georgia was on defense. But no, to me, Stroud and then Marvin Harrison Jr. were the two best players on the field, when Ohio State had the ball.
Even though we couldn't run the ball, they gave him, the offensive line played great. They gave him, time to throw the ball a lot of the time. I mean, he was sitting back there doing what he does. And the few times they got pressure, he kind of,
he was great.
Definitely. He maneuvered the pocket, got out of, he rolled out like that. I don't know if it was the second touchdown to Marvin, or maybe it was the first one, right?
Both of them. He was on the move on both throws, and they were great throws. Yeah.
I mean, dude, that's when you're like, God damn, that's money. And so
he had a play.
Was awesome.
He was awesome. He had a play where he got pressure right up the middle from Jalen Carter, and he just sidestepped him, and he threw a strike on the right sideline for about 15, 20 yards to Julian Fleming. I mean, I was like, whoa, that's a big time NFL throw right there. CP, what else did you see on the positive side that stood out to you from this performance by the Buckeyes?
Offensive line.
Yeah, line was good, huh?
Yeah, I think that was one of my concerns. Like, pick them as a unit. I think they stepped up. There's a lot of positives. I mean, it's funny that it just goes to show you, with a defense like Georgia and a team that we played, like, a skeleton crew. Like, I mean, we have no, starting running back, and by no means whatsoever am I, laying down the E word excuses, but I mean, I'm proud of this team. I think there was a lot of shining moments. I'm really happy that CJ went out the way he did. I was a little concerned, as I expressed in the preview pod, that, hey, like, I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm going to make $1 million. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
My legacy with Michigan's not good, but he came out and just threw it all out there, man. He was willing to just to lay it all on the line, which he did. And, I'm very happy with the way they play. The outcome, obviously, as we know, is not the best, but hey.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the future of this team.
Yeah, he laid to rest any questions about his heart, right? And his determination, right? His mettle in this game. I really thought so. And, PVH, you had said, and so did our friend Sloaner, I think both of you thought Ohio State would be able to run the football a little bit in this game. And you were right, actually. 32 carries for 119 yards. Now, I know that's not an explosion in the run game, but that also factors in C.J. Stroud's sack yardage. But you got 43 yards on 9 carries from Dallin Hayden. You got 28 yards on 6 carries from Xavier Johnson. Man, how about the X-Man? I just love that guy. So I think overall, Ohio State did what they needed to do. They got just enough in the run game, which you and Sloaner thought would probably happen. I was a little more skeptical that it could, but they were just good enough in the run game. They did a little something there. And then what can you say about Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr.? Well, primarily Marvin Harrison Jr. 5 catches, 106 yards. He doesn't go out with that concussion. I mean, we're talking about a very different game. That was just a really tough break for Ohio State. Emeka Egbuka was also really good, 8 catches for 112 yards. And then Julian Fleming came to life. We talked about, hey, where the hell is Julian?
Yeah.
Mr. Milk Carton. He showed up for this game, 71 yards receiving on 5 receptions. And they also got 3 for 43 from Xavier Johnson, including a 37-yard touchdown. So offense, I'm sorry, you put up 41 points in a game like this and the amount of offense Ohio State did, you should expect to win. Offense held up their end of the bargain. And I also thought Ryan Day recaptured his mojo as a play caller in this game. I mean, did he not have Georgia kind of backpedaling for the better part of 3 quarters until Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt? I mean, didn't he? I thought he was great as play caller in this game. What did you think, PBH?
Oh my God, he was phenomenal. And I think he put the rest, and I was probably, at least out of the 3 of us, the most that was tooting the horn, questioning whether or not this guy's, worthy of being the coach at Ohio State. And, is he truly, an elite coach? He called a phenomenal game. And yeah, you're right. I mean, and again, it kind of goes back, not to use the excuses thing. And, I alluded to, there was like 5 things in the fourth quarter. They all went Georgia's way.
They did.
But the targeting call, and then you lose Harrison, right? That's 2 of the 5. And there might even have been more. But even on that last drive, you could just who the hell do we have left?
Yeah.
And not having him on the field. And then you think about, Jesus Christ, man, and I hate to say this, but if JSN's on that field, we're probably winning that game easily. Not easily, but it's just my God, they were just so shorthanded. And so, that's disappointing. And you're right, you got to take advantage when you're there. And my God, it's been enough times where, shit, well, when are we going to kind of, catch some breaks? And the whole rest of the world's like, come on, Ohio State, you fucking
Yeah. This game felt a lot like the 2019 semifinal loss to Clemson, didn't it? And I think because there were 5 or 6 breaks that didn't go Ohio State's way that were major, that, made a major difference in the game. And also what that game had in common with this one is Ohio State was facing the defending national champions. And, I just felt also, in addition to the breaks, Georgia just had a little bit more championship mettle than Ohio State in some areas as well. And, the wherewithal by Kirby Smart to get that time out of the fake punt, right? It was just that little bit extra that Georgia had that they probably earned from their title run last year that Ohio State just didn't quite have in this game. So that was another difference that I saw. All right, fellas. Well, listen, I know we don't have a ton of time here, and I wanted to have a quick peek ahead to next season. We don't have to spend too much time on that. And then, Paige, you had a really fun game for us to play here that we can do here at the very end. So let's have a peek ahead to the 2023 season. Ohio State has what looks to be a pretty tough slate schedule-wise, with road games at Notre Dame, at Wisconsin, and at Michigan. Now, the part of the schedule to watch out for next year is in October, where the Buckeyes get Penn State at home, and then that's on the 21st of October, and then they have to travel to Madison on the 28th to take on Luke Fickell's Badgers. Remember, Fickell is the head coach at Wisconsin now. And we expect Wisconsin to be vastly improved under Fickell next season. Notre Dame and Michigan will almost certainly be top 10 matchups. Also, watch out for Minnesota in the shoe the week before the Michigan game. That game has a little bit of a feel that the Illinois game did for Michigan before we played them, right? I mean, you can't overlook Minnesota. The last time we played them, that game came down to the final minutes of the fourth quarter. And I think the last time we played them in the shoe back in 2018, they gave us a good game. So pretty tough schedule for Ohio State in 2023. Now, we're still waiting on certain players to make their NFL decisions, and we expect Ohio State to be very aggressive in the transfer portal this offseason. They'll also likely lose a few more kids to the portal. But this is what we know right now about the personnel for next year's team. Now, first and foremost, the Buckeyes are going to have a new face at quarterback next season. It's, likely a foregone conclusion that C.J. Stroud is declaring for the NFL draft. He's gone. Now, we expect a pretty good battle at that position with 5-star Kyle McCord, who is headed into his 3rd season with the program, and second-year man Devin Brown. He was a high 4-star. He was the number 43 overall player in his class. Now, most of us assume it's probably McCord's job to lose, but don't count out Brown, who brings a little bit more athleticism and running ability to that position than McCord. Guys, on the quarterback position, just give me your best guess. Who wins that competition? CP? Who do you like?
I'm going to go with Kyle McCord.
You think McCord wins it?
Especially since he's got the he was Marvin Harrison with his man like for like two or three state titles.
That's true.
So I'm
good
gonna
point.
McCord.
He's going to have that chemistry with their probably their best offensive player going into next year. That's a really good point.
And I feel like he's been learning a lot from Stroud. I mean, most guys would have just like, then fuck this, I'm out. I'm getting in the portal. I think he's gonna it's gonna pay off. It could pay big dividends for him.
Now, my only wish is that he got more than 67 snaps and 20 pass attempts this season. It feels like Ryan Day missed some opportunities to get him some game action, right? Especially in those blowouts. How about you, PBH? Your best guess. Who do you think wins this competition?
I don't know. I kind of feel like, and it's not fair to McCord, but the opportunities he's had, he hasn't looked that great. That doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to go with Brown. I think Brown's going to win this job. I think he's more mobile.
Yeah. Well, and that's something, a lot of folks have been clamoring for, is just more mobility, a little bit more playmaking than just thrown from the pocket, right?
It's so freaking deadly in college football.
Oh, yeah.
And again, we're not going to go back to the JT Barrett, RPO days, thankfully. But,
right.
It just makes such a difference in the college game. And
Absolutely.
TJ, for whatever reason, was loath to do it for 2 years until the Georgia game. But and so I don't think McCord is mobile at all. He's probably less mobile than CJ Stroud. So I'm going with
not
Brown.
True.
Yeah, I think McCord has a little bit of.
Chad, there? Do you have a stopwatch?
Look at the stats.
Well,
choose not.
We'll see. I tend to agree with you, PBH. When you can marry arm talent with mobility, it's deadly. So let's look at the rest of the returning starters on offense. Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, they're all back. Now, Xavier Johnson participated in senior day, but he still has some eligibility, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see if he decides to come back. And incoming freshman Brandon Inniss, now he's a player to watch, and they think he's good enough to play right away as a freshman. Ohio State's going to get the entire running back room back, we think.
Don't forget about Tate.
Tate as well, but Inniss he's the headliner of the class. Trey Henderson, Mayan Williams, Dallin Hayden, Evan Pryor, Chip Trainum, all of those guys are going to be back. I mean, that's about as good as you can get with a running back room. A lot of depth and a lot of skill and proven playmakers there. Now, the offensive line is, I think, the big question with the offense. Donovan Jackson and Luke Whippler are back for sure. Matthew Jones, now he also participated in senior day, but I think he also still has some eligibility and might be back. Some other key contributors, Josh Fryer. A lot of people think he's going to take one of those starting tackle spots. Enoch Vimahi is another guy who might see some playing time. Now, this is an area where I think Ohio State's going to be aggressive in the transfer portal. Two names to watch in the transfer portal. Washington State's Jarrett Kingston. He was actually in Columbus today, Kingston was, for an official visit. And Stanford's Walter Roos. Kingston and Roos are potential targets for one of the two starting offensive tackle spots. I think Ohio State might try and land both of them, because we know Paris Johnson Jr., DeJuan Jones, they're both off to the NFL. Finally, I think Ohio State's going to be just fine at tight end. I think Cade Stover's back, G. Scott Jr.'s back, and Joe Royer should be healthy and back. Mitch Rossi departs. He is out of eligibility. PVH, what are you expecting from this offense in 2023?
It comes down to the quarterback, right? They'll fill the holes on the offensive line. Hopefully they go, get some guys out of the portal, which is another point, right? Like, I don't know, not on the offense specifically, but they asked Day about, how do you feel about the portal? He's like, I don't want to disrupt things. He needs to rethink that, right?
Yes.
Look at TCU. They're 13 kids out of the portal. You can't be worried about hurting people's egos, which i.e. is what he was saying. And then you get guys leaving, and I don't think you can, who knows why guys are in the portal, right? Who has any clue, right? Like J.K. Johnson, maybe somebody just offered him $300,000 and he's going to go take that $300,000. Who the F knows? It's the Wild West.
LSU is going to get him, and they're offering a hell of a lot more than $300,000.
Okay, so whatever it is, so, that's a whole nother pod for a whole nother topic, but Ryan Day and the Buckeyes need to be much more aggressive in the portal because, fill those holes, and you know what? It's life in the big city, as Urban Meyer says. But to me, they're going to be phenomenal. The running backs are going to be good. The wide receivers, hopefully Ennis or Tate come in. They're going to be unstoppable. Who's going to throw them the ball?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the big thing. And that's why this was the year for them, right? It's hard to expect, a first-year starter to take a team and go win a national championship. That's why this was the year for them to do it. And they came so close. But that, to me, is the biggest question mark going in. It's quarterback. It's the most important
if there's any
on the field.
Yep, absolutely. However, if there's anyone who can do it, it would be Day. He's got a great track record with first-year starters. How about you, CP? What are you expecting from this offense in 2023?
You heard it here right now. It's going to be better next year than it was this year.
Oh, wow.
That's a bold statement, but I'm telling you what, it's going to be, they're going to be a more seasoned unit.
And if they can stay healthy for
line, yes.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. Exactly. I mean, that's, but that's a given. I'm not concerned about the offensive line. It sucks losing, Paris and like whatever, but I think that they've been like grooming some of these guys that came in that were big ballers, like 5-star guys. And I think they're going to be good. Like you said, getting healthy and staying healthy is the biggest factor, but
yeah,
I mean, that is a stable full of like just studs at running back, wide receivers, whether it's Brown or McCord, at the end of the day, I really don't give a fuck. I think McCord, him being in the program for 3 years, that says a lot, regardless of how much time he's been on the field. And like you said, Z, Day, if there's one position that I can trust in him, and that's the quarterback. So, yeah. But I honestly, as a unit, as a whole, I think they're going to be better next year.
You know what? That's not an outrageous claim. And, again, Ryan Day, by the way, his last 3 first-year starters, all to New York as Heisman finalists. So good reason to trust his track record there. And yeah, if Ohio State can stay healthy, we haven't really mentioned that. And, in the analysis, looking back on this season, injuries, especially on offense for this team.
Killed them.
Devastating. It's not hyperbole. It is. No. I can't remember another season as in my long, 40 plus years as an Ohio State fan, where injuries were this big of a factor. And I have no idea how to assess this, but some of the folks that I follow on Twitter have been complaining about the training staff and Mickey Marotti and all the soft tissue injuries that Ohio State has had this year. And they're pointing the finger at their conditioning. I have no idea how to assess something like that. But if they can sort out the injury situation and whether that there is a solution there in the way they're training these kids. Maybe it was just bad luck, but man, health is a huge factor. And if they are healthy, you're getting Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka in year 3, Trey Henderson in year 3, Fleming, and then some of these other kids. I don't think that's an outrageous claim at all, CP, that Ohio State could actually be certainly a more productive offense.
Scary, isn't it?
Yeah. So if they can't sort out the offensive line, right? And to your point, PVH, you can't worry about hurt feelings. You got to be kind of ruthless in the portal. And by all accounts, from what I'm hearing from a lot of the folks that I listen to, Ohio State has been very aggressive in the transfer portal. All right, fellas, let's have I know we're running up on our time here, so let's have a look over to the defensive side of the ball. And actually, that's where I think we're expecting a little bit more movement. We've got a lot more departures on that side of the ball, starting with on defense on the defensive line, Zach Harrison, Teron Vincent, Jerron Cage, Tyler Friday, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who entered the transfer portal this week, are all gone. In the secondary, Ronnie Hickman, who declared before the Michigan game, Cam Brown, Tanner McAllister, Josh Proctor, and J.K. Johnson, another entry into the transfer portal. By the way, I think that's a huge loss for Ohio State. He was a top 50 player. I mean, we were just lamenting, top 100 players and not having enough of them. J.K. Johnson was number 50 in his class, so that's a big loss, I think, for Ohio State. And then at linebacker, Palie Neoteote, he was the USC transfer, never really got his footing at Ohio State. He leaves as well. Returning for Ohio State, though, on the defensive line, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Mike Hall Jr., Ty Hamilton, Tyleek Williams. How about Caden Curry, the young freshman? He made a little noise this year when he got to play.
When he played, he was good.
He was real good, real good.
Nasty.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has nasty on him.
At linebacker, I personally think Ohio State's going to get everybody back that matters. Tommy Eichenberg, Steel Chambers. Now, they still have NFL decisions to make, but I expect both of them to be back. Cody Simon. Now, the big name to watch in that group is C.J. Hicks. Will Hicks make that leap from his freshman to sophomore season? So that'll be an interesting group to watch. But I think if Eichenberg and Chambers are back, they're going to be your starters. And then at corner, Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Jair Brown, who showed us a little something. He'll be a sophomore. And then you have incoming freshman Calvin Simpson Hunt and Jermaine Matthews. By the way, Matthews is already in Columbus. He's been there for a while now. He was an early enrollee, and the Buckeye Talk guys really like Matthews. They think he has a legitimate shot to see some playing time there at corner. Finally, at safety, Lathan Ransom, Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, who flashed in the spring game, and then Jihad Carter, the Syracuse transfer, who was just added to the roster this week. So, guys, I think
leaving off a few names, I think that are going to step up we've been waiting on is Reed Carrico, Gabe Powers. They
were injured this year, right? So hopefully those guys are names that can make some noise at linebacker for sure. Now, Ohio State only plays 2 linebackers in Jim Knowles' scheme, so I don't know how many guys we can expect to really get playing time. And maybe we're looking at some portal entry of some of these names too. I don't know, maybe a guy like Cody Simon is like, look, I'm barely playing here, I'm out, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so Paige, let me kick this over to you. Now, what are you expecting from this group? All those names that I just listed, what are your expectations for the defense in 2023?
Well, it's pretty simple, right? They just have to get a little bit better in the secondary. If you do that, you're winning a national championship, right? It's, the defensive line is going to be sick. The linebackers they're not, maybe really Raekwon McMillan or, AJ Hawk, but very, very solid. Just shore some things up. And then again, I don't know, maybe we expect a little bit more, from a scheme, maybe we need a little growth, from the coaching staff. I don't know. I mean,
that's a good question.
We're not that close to it, but I don't know. Maybe Knowles is rethinking some stuff, and what it actually, because it's different, because you actually had made that comment like, well, he elevates talent at Oklahoma State. This ain't Oklahoma State, right? And Oklahoma State ain't playing Georgia in the national championship game. So, maybe in the biggest moments, you need to rethink some things. And maybe that's the most important thing that we should expect some growth in. Because I actually said, I was talking to my dad. I was like, maybe Ryan Day, he's growing, right? He's having these games, he's getting more experience. And I think it showed in that game.
Yeah.
And then his immediate response is, then you shouldn't be the coach at Ohio State. And I'm like, okay, that's fair too. But, maybe that's the most important thing, right? They'll be fine personnel. You said it before. Dude, we recruit better than anybody except maybe Alabama and Georgia. Yeah. That's it. And so that's not the reason why they're not winning these games. And, we're going up against the best teams in the country. And for whatever reason, the last few years, we've fallen just a tad short in a couple of years. So maybe the biggest thing in my mind is some growth by Jim Knowles. They'll be fine player-wise. They'll figure it out. Go get players, and players are coming in. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's Ryan Day's biggest challenge is as head coach is to figure out the Jim Knowles situation. In hindsight, maybe it was a mistake to call him the quote head coach of the defense and give him as much freedom and power as he did on that side of the ball. Because I feel like Knowles needs a little more oversight, and he might need another veteran presence, another veteran defensive mind in that room to kind of help him as the architect of that defense, and even with some of the play calling. Sorry. Okay, CP, I'm going to kick this back to you. What are you expecting from the defense in 2023?
I'm excited to see some of these guys that like Gabe Powers, Reed Carrico, they've been dinged up, Sonny Styles. I mean, the big question for him is he going to is he going to play line? Is he going to get moved to linebacker? Or is he going to be, a defensive back? I mean, there's some really like that CJ Hicks. I'm so stoked. I mean, he was like the number 1 linebacker in the country. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so I think there will be maybe a time in the season and Steel Chambers might be, trying to get some play time. Could be. I mean, if CJ Hicks makes that leap, I hope that's a problem. You know what I mean? I absolutely hope that it's a good problem. And God bless Steel Chambers. He's a running back, making a lot of tackles out there all over the field. But that's a good problem for us to have if he's actually fighting for time. You know what I mean?
Just 2 quick notes on special teams. Noah Ruggles departs, but I think Ohio State likes what it has in Jaden Fielding at place kicker, and then Jesse Merkel will be back at punter. So in my post-game pod on New Year's Day, I talked a lot about C.J. Stroud's, complicated legacy as a quarterback. Probably the best pure passer to ever come through the program. A player who put up great individual stats, is the only 2-time Heisman finalist in program history other than Archie Griffin, but who doesn't have the team accomplishments to put him alongside the all-time greats. He never beat Michigan. He never won the Big Ten. He never won a playoff game. And off of that, PVH, I thought you came up with a really good idea of listing our top 5 Buckeye quarterbacks of all time. So PVH, I'm going to let you do the honors and kick things off.
It's my idea. I get to go last.
Oh, you're going to go last. Okay. CP, why don't you get us started? Give us your top 5 Buckeye quarterbacks.
Number 1, Steve Bell. Sorry. No, I'm kidding. Do I have to go? Do I have to?
All right, I'll go first.
Because okay, yeah, because I've got my 5 guys, but I don't want to do
I've got my 5 guys too, but I've been jostling them around.
All right, go ahead.
So number 1, I got Justin Fields.
All right.
Number 2, I've been moving these guys around. Number 2, I got Dwayne Haskins.
All right.
Number 3, I got Craig Krenzel.
Wow.
Number 4, Cardale Jones. And number 5, I got CJ Stroud. Because for whatever you say about Krenzel and whatever you say about Cardale, what do they have that the other guys don't?
Well, they have national championship rings.
They have national championships.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Cardale made some plays for sure during that playoff run. He was also
3 games, baby. That's all it took.
Well, he was also handing off to Zeke, who was going for about 250 each of those games.
I'm ready to roll.
All right,
no particular order from 1 to 5. Okay.
Oh, it's got to be in order. It's got to be in order.
It's got to be in order.
Yeah, give us
the hard part.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. So, then if we look at that way, I'm gonna go. Number 1, Braxton Miller.
Okay.
God, see, when I say that, I don't know. I'm just gonna do my 5. You know what? You guys can put them in the order wherever you want. I'm gonna go Braxton Miller, Troy Smith, Justin Fields. Krenzel. I was there when they won the national championship. And is he the best? No, but he was on the flip side of this, one of the most amazing.
I can't believe you guys put Craig Krenzel in your top 5.
He's not.
Oh my God! That's all team accomplishment. That's all team accomplishment.
100%.
Yeah.
That matters though, right?
Sure.
I was with you when you were weeping when we won the national championship.
Yeah.
I think you need to rethink Krenzel and give him the credit that he's due, my friend.
Terrell Pryor. I did. If I haven't mentioned him, I loved Pryor. That guy was like a gazelle.
That's your 5.
Okay, good. All right. I'm going to go with mine. These are mine. Now, these 5 I put in order of their ability. These are their ability and talent in my view. Justin Fields is number 1. CJ Stroud, I got number 2. Braxton Miller, 3. I got Dwayne Haskins at number 4. Only one great season for Dwayne Haskins, but had Ohio State given him the starting job in 2017, had Urban Meyer done that as he should have after the Oklahoma loss, then I think Haskins probably would be higher on this list. But he only got the one great season in 2018. And then finally, Troy Smith, great quarterback, Heisman winner, didn't quite win a national championship. But those are my top 5. And I guess I just put them in order of who I think was the most talented, who had the most arm talent, who had the most impact on the game. Those are my top 5. And honorable mention, Joe Germain in 1998 and Bobby Hoying in 1995. Those guys put up big time numbers.
I'm going to say Joe Burrow as well.
Yeah. Well, I thought about Joe Burrow too.
No. You can't claim him. He spent 2 seasons at LSU. Yeah.
But again, the funny part is, and I just kind of threw it out there. I don't even exactly remember how I worded it, but is it who had the most talent, or is it who's the most important, quarterback for the team? There's no way Krenzel makes the top 10. The guy's won a national championship.
Right.
Remember that throw he made against Purdue to win when we almost that's ridiculous.
Yeah. He made some big plays for sure. And if we're going to expand this to the top 10, I might consider Krenzel in there. But to me, he was all team accomplishments, and there is no
Todd Beckham.
And look, I mean, if he wants to pull out his team accomplishments and put them on the table next to some of these other guys, like C.J. Stroud, for instance, well, then he wins the argument for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you could make the argument that beating Miami in 2002 was like the most absurd thing.
Huge.
Oh, no one in the entire planet gave us a chance in winning.
Nobody.
That game.
Yeah.
I mean, beating Alabama in the semifinals was probably second, but I mean, 2002. I mean,
that team was loaded.
We were easily a double-digit underdog in that game.
Pretty sure we were. Pretty sure.
Although half that team, that was ridiculous though, because probably 80% of the Ohio State team actually was NFL talent, outside
especially on
of
defense,
which is the amazing thing. So to your point, Z, it's more of a team award. But on the other hand, I he's got to be in your top 5.
All right.
He broke a 30-year drought for national championships. Who knows?
I respect it. No, I mean, it makes total sense. It makes for a fun debate because there's a bunch of different names that you can include in the top 5. All right, boys. Well, listen, I know you have to bounce. We put the 2022 season to bed.
My life and my just existence like after tonight. So thank you, Z.
It was a nice group therapy, wasn't it? We helped each other through.
It really was, man. I'm actually, I'm happy. I think I'm gonna go down to my local bar and sit there and with a smile on my face and watch the second half of the Buckeye game and just be happy as fuck. And I hope you have a great evening. And Paige, I hope you have a great dinner tonight, bro.
Thanks.
I think you got plans. I hope you guys have and I wish nothing but the best and most wonderful 2023 for all of our listeners, the Buckeyes, us, all of the above, Shade and E, all of the above.
You've been listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our website at southstandsosu.com.